Hi, this is Martha with Nature Niche. Happy Monday. For this week's topic, I want to talk to you about another native plant species, Steeplebush. Another common name is hardhack, and that's because it has very tough woody stems. And the Latin name is Spirea tomentosa. So this is a really pretty little native shrub species that grows in bogs, tamarack swamps, wet meadows, the borders of ponds and vernal pools, marshes, places with sandy peaty soils, so lake shores and dried lake bottomlands. I'm showing it to you here in Midland County in a little open pocket in an otherwise kind of maple pin oak deciduous swamp. And it is fairly restricted to acidic soils, places with acidic soils, and sometimes it can venture into a little bit drier habitat. It prefers full sun to part shade and average to pretty wet soils. So if you're planning to use this as a landscape plant, keep those things in mind. It is a sparsely branched, rather upright little shrub. It gets 2 to 4 feet tall, and I think it's best interplanted with other native vegetation of a similar height. The woody stems the species does die back all the way to the ground, usually, and then grows back up from the base each winter and spring. And to recognize the plant, we look for these alternate leaves, so they're alternating along the stem, dark green with very impressed veins, so that means the veins stick out very boldly on the leaf underside. And you can see that the stem, the flower branches, and the underside of the leaves are covered in this felt-like woolly kind of rusty brown or tan fuzzy hair. And so that's a good key characteristic. The leaves have sort of blunt, forward pointing teeth, and the flowers are pink in color. And so that's how you recognize this species. Just on a little compare and contrast note, here is another species in that same genus. This is meadowsweet, Spirea alba. You may have seen this for sale at our store. And this species has, you can see there are white spike of flowers coming, and the leaf undersides are glabrous or hairless. So they don't have and they're thinner in texture. I think the Steeplebush has much thicker, kind of more leathery leaves. So, but two species in the genus Spirea, great native plants. So the flowers, it's this beautiful pink color that form in July and August, and they're arranged in a narrow panicle, and each flower is pretty tiny, only 3 or 4 millimeters across. They have 5 petals, and they form a really neat looking star-shaped group of follicles. So and those persist through the winter, and I actually, found some today hanging on from last year. So you can see the sort of star-shaped 5-parted arrangement of those follicles. So another good helpful characteristic. I think these are really pretty, and if you grab them and dry them after the seeds disperse, they look nice in dry arrangements as well. So this species, from a wildlife perspective, is an abundant pollen source for our native pollinators, things like bees, flies, and beetles. It also produces a small amount of nectar, and Karner blue butterfly, the federally listed butterfly I showed you a couple of weeks ago on the west side of the state, is known to nectar on this species. Steeplebush is also the larval host for several butterflies and moths. So the caterpillars of spring and summer azures, which are really cute little blue butterflies, The caterpillars feed on the flowers, the buds, and the developing seed capsules. Moth caterpillars like scallop shell moth, sharped line yellow, blind-eyed sphinx, and northern apple sphinx, as well as spirea leaf tear moth, eat the leaves of this plant. And white-tailed deer may browse on it, but it's not a preferred food source because the foliage is rather bitter and astringent. So a nice pretty native plant to look for in wetland habitats and wet meadows, or to consider using in your own landscape. Thanks for listening.